The door slammed so hard the projector quivered. That wasn't even the shock. The real jolt was the sound right before it, 100 young voices laughing at me in the Red Flag auditorium. The air thick with jet fuel, burnt coffee, and that cocky testosterone buzz that always came before a fight they thought they'd already won. I stood in the back in a plain sage green flight suit, no wings pinned, no rank showing, just a generic name tape. Blake. Invisible. Exactly how I'd planned it. "You lost, ma'am?" One of them called from a rear row, smirking over his shoulder. "Spouse's briefing is down the hall." The cluster around him snorted. I felt my jaw twitch. "Careful, Moose," another pilot said. "She might write you up in HR." The laughter got louder. It wasn't the first time I'd heard that tone in a squadron. It stung less than it used to. But humiliation still has a way of cutting through Kevlar. Then I heard the one voice I'd hoped wouldn't join in. "Easy, gents," Connor drawled from the middle of the room. "That's my sister. She's just looking for a husband. This is for real pilots only." A fresh burst of laughter. He didn't even turn all the way around, just half swiveled in his seat, profile perfect under the projector's wash, jaw clean-shaven, hair high and tight, the $8,000 pilot watch Dad bought him flashing on his wrist as he gestured to the front. "Red Air support staff sits up there when they want to feel important," he added. "Vault trolls, paperwork gurus. Don't worry, sis, we'll let you watch the pros work." Every head within 3 rows turned to look at me, then past me, through me, like I was part of the cinder block wall. Inside my chest, something old and familiar moved. For years, I'd flinched when Connor used me for a punchline. At home, at holidays, in front of Dad. Today, it didn't land the same way. Maybe because I knew what was coming. Maybe because 2 weeks earlier, I'd watched a 3-star general slide a folder across a desk and tap a new call sign with one blunt finger, Falcon 1. "You're not backup," General Harris had said then. "You're the threat." Now, in this auditorium, none of them knew that. They just saw a 30-something woman in a plain flight suit standing in the shadows, with Blake on her chest and no visible wings. "Everything all right back there, Major?" Mike's voice murmured in my earpiece, the tiny in-ear that linked me to the cage, the command center buried under the Nevada desert. I swallowed down the heat in my throat. "Peachy," I answered under my breath. "Blue Force morale is high. Target egos confirmed." Sarah chuckled softly on the channel. "Copy," she said. "Ghost systems are spun up whenever you want to break their hearts." I didn't answer. Not yet. On the stage, the junior briefing officer droned on about airspace, ingress routes, frequencies. The young pilots half listened, half checked their phones under the table. Connor sprawled in his chair, call sign Viper, stitched in bold letters on his chest. He'd earned the name in flight school with a few flashy gun skills and a willingness to push limits just far enough to scare instructors without getting written up. Dad loved that story. "Chip off the old block," he'd said, clapping Connor on the back. "Aggressive, fearless, a real Blake pilot." He'd said it 2 weeks ago at Prime Cut, that Vegas steakhouse where they bring your meat out like a trophy. He'd never said it about me. "Remember," the briefer said on stage, "Red Air's job is to make you better, not to give you easy wins. Respect your adversaries." Connor smirked. "Respect the cardboard MiGs," he muttered to his buddy. "Got it." On the back wall, a digital clock ticked down to the official start of Red Flag, T000537. My pulse shifted into a familiar rhythm, the one it used to find in the F-16 cockpit before a night sortie. Even on the ground, my hands twitched like they wanted a stick to wrap around. I didn't have one today. I had something else, authority. The scrape of the heavy side door cut through the low rumble of voices, then it slammed. The laughter died mid-snort. 3-star silence is different. You feel it before you see it. General Harris strode down the aisle in his flight jacket and starched pants, boots striking the concrete with a certain unhurried inevitability. His hair was steel gray, his face carved into the permanent squint of someone who'd stared into too many sunsets through plexiglass. The briefer's voice faltered. Sir," he stammered. "At ease," Harris said, barely looking at him. He went straight to the front, turned, and swept the room with his gaze. 100 young pilots straightened instinctively. Even Connor pulled his boots off the chair in front of him and sat up, the easy smirk fading into respectful attentiveness. Harris let the silence stretch just long enough to itch. "Young warriors," he said finally, "welcome to Red Flag. For the next 2 weeks, this is the closest thing to real combat you can get without someone actually trying to shoot you out of the sky." A ripple of nervous chuckles. He didn't smile. "Some of you think you're here to show off," he went on. "Some of you think you're here to pad your records. All of you are wrong. You're here to learn how not to get yourselves and your wingmen killed. You're here to have your illusions stripped." He paused. "And that," he said, "is why she is here." His hand lifted. For a split second, every pilot in the room craned their necks, expecting the second door to open, expecting some legendary gray-haired war hero to stride in with stories from Desert Storm and Afghan valleys. Harris didn't look at the side door. He turned his head and faced me. The room's attention followed like a flock. My heart thudded once. Then I stepped forward, boots steady on the concrete. Every instinct from childhood, shrink, don't draw fire, don't embarrass dad, banged on the inside of my skull. I walked anyway. Harris met me at the front row. In full view of every lieutenant and captain in that room and my brother, he snapped to attention and gave me a salute crisp enough to cut air. "Falcon 1, he said, voice carrying to the back wall. "The floor is yours." The world narrowed to the sound of that call sign. I'd heard it in the vault, in skiff briefings, on encrypted orders. Never out here. Never in the light. I returned the salute, fingers steady, eyes level. "Thank you, sir," I said. He stepped aside. I turned to face the room. It was like standing on the edge of a canyon, staring at 100 little faces, most of them a mix of confusion and dawning. Something. Recognition, maybe, or the first taste of cognitive dissonance. Connor's jaw had gone slack. "Wait," he blurted too loudly. What is this?" I let my gaze pass over him like he was any other pilot. "Good morning, Blue Force," I said, letting my voice settle into the calm cadence I used in the cage. "My name is Major Aaron Blake, United States Air Force. Call sign Falcon 1. I am the aggressor mission commander for this iteration of Red Flag." The words dropped into the room one by one. "I will control every radar spin, every jamming profile, every adversary tactic you face," I continued. "For the next 2 weeks, my team's job is to break your bad habits before a real enemy gets the chance." I let that land. "Some of you," I went on, "have already decided Red Air is just cardboard MiGs and washouts who couldn't hack it." A few pilots shifted, glancing at Connor. "I used to fly blue," I said, F-16s. "I've seen what arrogance looks like in a HUD before the world goes sideways. I've watched good pilots turn bad in seconds because they were too busy admiring themselves to check their six." Memories flickered. My own near-career-ending incident. The way Whispers had twisted it into a narrative that fit what Dad believed about women in cockpits. I didn't put that on the table. Not today. "You will call me Falcon 1 on comms," I said instead. "You will respect Red Air as if your life depends on it because someday it might." Silence. Harris moved to the sidewall, arms folded, content to watch. I clicked a remote. The auditorium lights dimmed. The screen behind me lit up with a radar scope, lines of code, simulated tracks swirling over a digital Nevada. "This is what I see when you think you're alone," I said. Blips danced. Blue fighters, red adversaries. Sam rings. "I am not here to make you fail," I continued. "I am here to let you fail where it doesn't cost you a real wingman. You will experience jamming, deception, and tactics your enemy has spent decades perfecting. We've studied them in the vault under this desert until they're second nature." I tapped a key. HUD footage filled the screen. A blue fighter flying tall and proud, contrails etching smug lines across the sky. Then, a red jet sliding into its blind spot, invisible on its radar thanks to ghosted returns. "FYI," I said, keeping my tone almost conversational. "That's an F-35. The red jet is a decade older. The F-35 pilot never checks his six. We kill him 3 times before he even realizes the threat is behind him." A couple of F-35 guys in the room shifted uncomfortably. "Tech can't save you from bad habits," I said. "Neither can your last name." I didn't look at Connor when I said it. I didn't have to. I could feel him burning a hole in the side of my flight suit. You could have heard a safety pin drop in that room. For the next 2 weeks, I finished, you are not heroes. You are students. Treat this like a real war and you will walk out alive, more dangerous and more humble. Treat it like a stage and I will gladly give you front row HUD footage of your own funeral for the debrief. A low, uneasy laugh rippled. I let the corner of my mouth twitch. Welcome to Red Flag, I said. Questions? Hands didn't fly up the way they usually did. Eventually, one lieutenant raised his. Ma'am, he said carefully, what's the ROE for Red Air? Do you pull punches for us so we don't look too bad? No, I said simply. I pull punches when I see you about to kill someone for real, not to protect your egos. Your egos aren't my problem. They're my raw material. A couple of older instructors in the back snorted approval. Connor's hands were fists on his knees. He didn't raise them. He didn't ask anything. I could all but hear his thoughts. Sis, what are you doing? You're supposed to stay invisible. Make me look good. That's your job. 2 weeks earlier at Prime Cut, he'd made that explicit. I could still taste the steak, the bitter red wine, the metallic tang of humiliation. We'd been all together, me, Connor, Dad, at a long corner table under dim chandeliers and 2 bright decorations. Tonight, Dad had said, lifting his glass, voice carrying just enough for the neighboring tables to hear, we celebrate the future of the Blake name in the stratosphere. He'd raised his glass toward Connor. To Viper, he'd said, the real pilot. The real pilot. He'd turned to me barely. And to Aaron, he'd added, almost as an afterthought. Keeping the paperwork straight in the vault, everyone needs a backup. People had laughed politely. Dad had reached into a bag and produced a black velvet box the size of a small pistol case. Inside, the chronograph. Stainless steel, blue dial, engraved back. He'd placed it on Connor's wrist himself. Every second over the range, Dad had said. I want you thinking about what it took me to get you there. Don't waste it, son. Then he'd slid a cheap grocery chain envelope across to me. For you, he'd said. Thought you could use some basics on base. $50. I remember staring at my reflection in the steak knife beside my plate. Warped. Double-imaged. A woman with pilot's shoulders and a blouse she'd bought on clearance, sitting across from the man who had given her his last name but not his faith. In the bathroom afterward, I'd gripped the sink so hard my knuckles went white. The little girl in me had cried for his approval. The major in me had done the math. I controlled the Red Flag roster. The general had called me Falcon 1. The watch on Connor's wrist might have cost $8,000. The simulation that could humble him cost billions. And I held the on-off switch. Back in the auditorium, the lights came up. Pilots shifted, murmured, recalibrated. Harris stepped forward again. You heard Falcon 1, he said. This is not a game. This is your chance to be destroyed where it doesn't matter so you can survive where it does. He glanced at me, a ghost of a smile touching his mouth. You're in good hands, he said. Even if some of you didn't realize whose hands you were laughing at 5 minutes ago. A few faces turned red. Connor's ears were bright crimson. As the pilots filed out toward the next brief, I stayed at the front, pretending to look over the schedule. One by one, they passed. Some threw me quick, respectful nods. Some looked away. Connor lingered. Aaron, he said under his breath when he reached me, incredulous and angry all at once. What the hell is this? Red Flag, I said. You remember the part about real combat, right? You let me stand up there and make jokes, he hissed. You let me call you... I let you show me exactly who you are on day 0, I said quietly. Makes it easier in the cage. He blinked. The cage? He repeated. The command floor, I said. Where I sit. While you fly, where I tell you. Under the threats I design. He swallowed. Dad's watching from the VIP gallery, he said. Like that should scare me. He expects... data, I said. Not a show. If he expects anything else, that's his problem. His mouth opened. Closed. Just don't make me look bad, he said finally, defaulting to the same plea he'd used since he was a teenager. And I was the one smoothing his messes with teachers and coaches and dad. You know, I know exactly what he is, I cut in. My voice was calm, dead calm. Out there, I said, nodding toward the sky beyond the walls. You're not my brother. You're Viper 1 on my scope, a target. Your safety is my responsibility. Your pride isn't. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. See you in the air, I said. And I walked out, the smell of jet fuel and hot concrete rising as I stepped onto the flight line, the Nevada sun hitting my face like a spotlight. In the distance, F-16s taxied, black and blue wraith paint glinting. My jets. My ghosts. My stage. 2 weeks from now, this base would remember one thing. Not the jokes told in the dark, but the call sign the 3-star had spoken into a silent room. Falcon 1. And what she chose to do with the power they never expected her to have. The vault breathed like a sleeping animal. No windows, just recycled air, humming servers, and the low, constant vibration of classified machines doing classified things under 100 feet of Nevada desert. The air smelled like dust, coffee burnt down to tar, and sometimes, if you stood close to the rack's ozone, it was the opposite of the sky, and somehow closer to war than anything on the ramp. I swiped my badge, placed my hand on the reader, and let the door seals release with that soft, hydraulic sigh I'd come to love. Welcome back to the Bat Cave, Mike grumbled from behind a console, sliding a styrofoam cup across the nearest flat surface without looking away from his radar wall. Thought we agreed on Falcon's Nest, Sarah said from the EW station, fingers flying over her keyboard, screens reflecting in her glasses. Falcons live in the sun, Mike said. This, he tapped a blinking panel, is where we make the sun lie. I took the coffee, swallowed a mouthful that tasted like scorched dirt, and stepped up to the main display. Blue tracks glowed. Simulated red tracks moved against them like ghosts. Weeks before the briefing that outed me in the auditorium, this was where General Harris had tested me. I want you to kill them, he'd said, standing behind me with his arms crossed, eyes on the wall. Not once, not with trick shots. I want you to annihilate an F-35 squadron using jets that should lose on paper. No cheating, no gotchas. Use their habits against them. He'd given me a week. I'd done it in 3 days. We'd loaded the blue side with every advantage, 5th-gen stealth, AWACS support, perfect weather. I'd given red rusting 3rd-gen fighters, old SAM sites, and spotty comms. Then I'd let the arrogance do the rest. Watch this, I said now, queuing up that test run. On the main screen, the scenario played. Blue pushed in textbook clean. Too clean. They're trusting the picture, I narrated, mostly for Mike and Sarah's benefit, not the possibility that someone else is painting it. I'd programmed slight timing lags in the AWACS feeds, ghosted a couple of red returns in the weeds, flipped one jammer profile at the exact second a blue element committed to emerge. On screen, the F-35 icons pushed straight into a SAM ring I'd masked as clutter. 3 red rings blinked. Kill, 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 the computer-generated controller called. If this were real, I said, someone would have just written 3 letters home. Sarah whistled under her breath. Mike uncrossed his arms. No mercy, he said approvingly. I like her. I'd expected Harris to nod, maybe grunt. Instead, he'd stepped closer, eyes narrowed. Do it again, he'd said. Different day, different profile, same result. We did. It worked. That was the day he called me into his office alone. The air there smelled like leather and printer ink, a little like the old man who'd once sat in Dad's wing commander seat, a memory that made my jaw clench. Sit, Major, Harris said, gesturing to the chair. I sat, palms flat on my thighs. You were railroaded out of your old squadron, he said without preamble. I read the IG report. I also read between the lines. Heat crawled up my neck. Sir, he held up a hand. Don't care, he said. Not today. What matters to me is whether you're the kind of person who lets that define you. I kept my mouth shut. That test you ran, he went on, was the most brutally honest thing I've seen in this vault in 5 years. You didn't play hero. You didn't coddle Blue. You did what the enemy is trying to do out there. He jerked his chin toward the concrete ceiling. Find patterns. Exploit them. Kill. He reached into a drawer, laid a small placard on the desk between us. Falcon 1. You want the job, he said. You get all of it. Kill authority in the sim, discretion to design profiles, command of the aggressor team this red flag. You screw it up, it's on you. You do it right. Some of these kids go home to their families who wouldn't have otherwise. You in? It took less than a heartbeat. Yes, sir, I said. Good, he replied. One condition. I lifted an eyebrow. You don't use this seat to settle family scores, he said. I know who your brother is. I know who your father is. I know the pressure that name carries on this base. You do your job, not your father's job, not your therapist's. Mine. Understood? I thought of Connor's laugh, Dad's watch, the grocery card. I thought of my own name on the F-16 board and how fast it had been erased when they'd needed someone to blame. Understood, I said. Because if you start flying with your feelings, he added quietly, you're no better than the boys you're here to fix. That line had stuck. Back in the present, in the vault, I watched Blue's icons on the live feed fan out as the first official day of Red Flag kicked off. Connor's call sign strobed on the scope. Viper 1. He and his element swept in high and fast, cutting through the airspace like it already belonged to them. Falcon, red flights are airborne, Mike said. Aggressors holding south per profile. Copy, I said. Ghost protocol on stage 1. Let's see what the Golden Boys do when the world stops making sense. Sarah's fingers tapped. On screen, subtle lies appeared. Slight range errors, timing quirks. Nothing that would break safety. Enough to test instincts. We listened to blue comms on the loop. Viper 1 tally bogeys. Fuck yeah, let's go hunting. Magnum Sam sight, easy day. Red Air looks sleepy today, boys. I watched Viper 1 push toward a SAM ring. Blue 1, this is Control, the voice of God controller said, neutral. Recommend you reevaluate heading. You're drifting toward a threat zone. Control, Blue 1, we've got it, another voice cut in. Picture's clean, just clutter. Proceeding is briefed. I underlined the time code on my pad. You gonna save his ass? Mike asked quietly. Not yet, I said. My job right now is to let consequences nip ankles, not take legs. On screen, the simulated SAM spooled. Say 10 launch, Sarah called. 2 seconds later, blue comms lit up. Control, Blue 1 is hit. What the? Another kill, another note in my log. Pattern, overconfidence, dismisses GCI. Ignores ambiguous threat. That day, I let Connor fly out of near mistakes with minor bruises. A low fuel scare he'd caused by hot-dogging too long on the deck. A blown rejoin that forced his wingman to go max AB to avoid separation minimum violations. A lazy check turn that let a red jet slide behind him, radar tone whining in his ears for almost 20 seconds before I killed the lock in the system. Each time, I gave him enough rope to feel the tug. Each time, he yanked it tighter. In the cage, the command floor buzzed. Big room, low light, banks of monitors casting blue-white glow on everyone's faces. It smelled like electronics, coffee, and the faint, sweaty tang of adrenaline that clings even in air conditioning. Falcon, Blue 1 is pushing hard deck, a controller said on day 3. That's a suggest a reminder. Blue 1, this is Control, I said into the mic, keeping my tone even. Hard deck is 15,000. You're nudging it. Control Viper 1, relax, Connor's voice came back. Just giving your guys some exercise. We're fine. On the HUD feed, I watched him drag Spike, my best aggressor pilot, into a tight scissors, edges of their contrails nearly overlapping. Altitude tape ticked down. 15.5, 15.2. Blue 1, knock that off, I snapped. Maintain hard deck or I will terminate your sortie. Copy Control, Connor said. But I could hear the eye roll in his voice. He leveled just enough to satisfy the letter of the law. The spirit? Nowhere close. In the debrief that night, he sat 3 rows up, leaning back, hands clasped behind his head as we rewound HUD footage. Every time his jet got killed, he blamed weather, data link, lag, his wingman's late calls. He never once said, that's on me. After the 3rd day, Sarah spun in her chair. You going to keep letting him skate? She asked quietly. I thought you'd be harder on him, if anything. I don't fight my brother, I said. I fight what'll kill him. I stared at the screen, at his call sign flashing. The truth that mattered had nothing to do with who'd shared my childhood bathroom. It had everything to do with the fact that Viper 1 flew like a man who thought his surname made him bulletproof. We all know how that story ends in real wars. And then came the day he almost killed Spike. Clouds hung low over the range, a smeared gray lid that forced everyone to stay sharp on instruments. Visibility under the deck was marginal, the air choppy. Hard deck is 1/8,000 today, I reminded over the net. You bust it, you're done, no exceptions. Copy, blue voices replied. On screen, Connor's formation pushed in. Spike and his red element waited in an offset position, ready to drag them through a funnel I'd designed to test their discipline. Falcon, red flight is on station, Spike said over the internal net. Ready to dance. Keep it safe, I replied. Cook them, don't burn them. He laughed. Always, boss. The merge happened fast. Blips crossed. Jets flashed past each other on HUDs. The sky a snarling mess of contrails, growling engines, radar tones. I watched Spike roll inverted, drop his nose, then pull up hard to retain altitude buffer. Connor didn't. Viper 1 is defensive, he crowed, diving under Spike's nose in a showy maneuver he'd probably practiced 100 times in clear blue training days. Altitude unwound, 19,000, 18.5. Blue 1, maintain hard deck, the controller warned. Control, relax, I've got this, Connor shot back, voice jittery with adrenaline. Just dragging him down. Spike tried to climb, but the separation closed vertically in a way that made my stomach drop. On the HUD tape, the two aircraft frames loomed on a collision vector that had nothing to do with simulated missiles and everything to do with gravity and ego. Blue 1, red 2, knock it off, I barked into the all-call. Knock it off, hard deck violation, climb now. For a second, no one moved. Then Spike yanked, engine whining as he pulled G's to get clear. Connor hesitated, a fraction, but long enough to make my palms sweat. They missed each other by less than 100 feet. In fighter terms, that's breathing the same air. The radio crackled. Nice of you to finally climb, Red, Connor said, still laughing. You almost hit me. Spike's reply was tight. Copy, Blue, he said. I did exactly what Control said. Yeah, whatever, Connor shot back. Maybe next time try not to camp at my altitude. This is Falcon, I cut in, voice flat. All players RTB, exercise terminated. Blue 1, you are grounded pending safety review. Silence, then. Falcon, this is Viper 1, Connor said, incredulous. You can't just... I can, I said, and I am. Knock it off stands, bring it home. On the cage floor, every head had swiveled toward me. Mike whistled low. Well, he muttered. There it is. I pulled off my headset and set it carefully on the console. My hands were steady. My pulse was not. Somewhere in the VIP gallery, I knew Dad was standing, fists clenched around the railing, demanding to know who'd embarrassed his son. He would learn the answer soon enough. But the problem had ceased to be about embarrassment the moment two jets nearly shared the same sky at the same time. In that instant, it had become about something much simpler. Who I was willing to lose. And who I wasn't. Back in my office that night, the air thick with the smell of old coffee and jet fuel soaked into my flight suit, I opened the folder marked Protocol Alpha, Full Spectrum Jamming, Integrated SAMs, Aggressor Profiles that left no room for lazy moves, and at the bottom, the Ghost Protocol, a deception layer designed to make overconfident pilots think they were safe when they weren't, and in danger when they were fine, long enough to force them to fall back on fundamentals or freeze. We'd never run it at full strength against a blue lead like Connor. Not yet. Sarah appeared in the doorway, a takeout container in one hand, a file in the other. So, she said, do we have a plan? Or do I need to start knitting in here? I looked up at her, then at the Alpha folder. Tomorrow, I said, more to myself than to her. We stop treating this like a teaching moment. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, what then? She asked. A controlled intervention, I said. We've tried warnings. We've tried small kills. He almost killed my pilot today. I'm done playing polite. Her gaze flicked to the folder. You're gonna run Ghost on him, she said quietly. Yes, I replied. And I'm going to be in the jet that kills him. Not literally, but in every way that mattered to the myth he wore like armor. Sarah nodded slowly. Want me to worry about your objectivity? She asked. General already did, I said. He gave me the job anyway. This isn't about making him look bad. It's about making sure he never gets the chance to turn a training range into a funeral. Mike appeared behind her, slapping the door frame lightly. Tell me I get to run the radar picture on this one, Thus, he said. Been waiting 20 years to feed a cocky viper to a smarter falcon. I opened the folder. Protocol Alpha stared back at me. I'll brief Harris, I said. We go live at 0900. Full ghost stack, hard deck non-negotiable, safety pilot in my back seat with a hand ready on the switch. He breaks rules again. There'll be no glitch to blame this time. I closed the file with a soft thud. In the reflection on my darkened monitor, I saw myself. Plain flight suit? No watch, no audience. Just a woman who'd spent years in the dark learning how to make arrogance explain itself on tape. Tomorrow, I'd take that learning back into the sky. Not to prove Dad wrong, not to humiliate my brother, but to show a room full of real pilots what happens when a falcon stops keeping her claws folded. And that, more than any steakhouse toast or cheap gift card, would be the line between the life I'd been cast in and the one I was finally ready to choose. I slid the folder into my bag and stood. Outside, the Nevada night pressed against the hangar windows, clear and cold. Above it, invisible for now, lay the airspace where all of this would play out. Time, as Dad liked to say, runs out for everybody, for Connor's fantasy of untouchable heroism. It was officially T-1. I hadn't smelled jet fuel from inside a helmet in 3 years. It hit the back of my throat as soon as I stepped out onto the flight line. The burnt metal tang, the scorched rubber, the dry Nevada dust that always found a way into your nose no matter how sealed your cockpit was. Black and blue wraith paint gleamed under the early sun. My jet waited on the far end, an F-16 with its radar nose tilted slightly like it was already curious about the day. Been a while since you strapped one on, Falcon, Spike said, falling into step beside me, helmet bag swinging against his leg. Rust shakes off at Mach, I said. He snorted. Your rust probably still beats half of Blue's shine, he replied. We stopped at the nose wheel. Crew chiefs moved around the jet like a pit crew, hands on panels, hoses, pins. The air smelled like hydraulic fluid and sweat. You sure you want the front seat? Spike asked, tone serious beneath the banter. I can fly the profile. You run Ghost from the back and play God where it's safe. I looked up at the canopy. Safe wasn't the point. I need him to feel it, I said. I need the room to see it from my HUD, not just the scope. Spike studied my face, You going to do something you'll regret? He asked quietly. I shook my head. I'm going to do the thing that makes sure I don't regret not doing it, I said. He considered that, then nodded. Backseat it is, then, he said. Try not to puke if I do something fancy. Try not to die if he does something stupid, I countered. We bumped fists. In the distance, blue jets were already taxiing. I caught a glint of Connor's watch even from here, flashing in the canopy as he did his pre-flight checks. Falcon 1, tower, the radio crackled in my helmet as I pulled it on. Confirm aggressor lid is stepping. Tower Falcon 1, I replied, voice going automatically into the clipped cadence that had been trained into my bones. Stepping. Ladder, cockpit, seat. The motions came back like muscle memory. Helmet on, mask clipped, harness straps tightened until the seat and I were one piece of machinery. My name tape was still Blake. My call sign, stenciled below the canopy rail, read Falcon 1. For once, both felt like they matched. Falcon 1, how copy? Sarah's voice came over the encrypted net, clean and sharp from the cage. Loud and clear, I said, flicking through the startup checklist. Ghost systems? Stacked and ready, she said. Protocol Alpha is green. We can fuzz his radar picture, lie about altitude, stretch ranges. Safety overrides are in place. You say cut, we cut. Copy, I said. No touching his instruments, no touching his flight controls. We lie to his brain, not his jet. Mike chimed in. Range is hot, he said. Blue flies first, you take off last. I want you coming in like a rumor. I smiled behind the mask. I thought I was a rumor, I said. Let's make it a ghost story. Engines spooled. The F-16 shuddered as life roared through it, cockpit vibrating under my gloved hands. Outside, crew chiefs pulled pins, gave thumbs up. Falcon 1 taxi, ground control said. Falcon 1 rolling, I answered. The jet crept forward, nose swinging to follow the yellow line, canopy giving me a panoramic view of steel, concrete, and mountains. Blue Force roared down the runway ahead of us, pairs of fighters carving into the morning air, afterburners throwing orange fists at the sky. I watched them go, my brother among them. Viper 1. His jet lifted, wheels tucking away neatly, wing rocking once in a little show-off waggle as he climbed. Save it for the merge, I muttered. Say again, Falcon? Sarah asked. Nothing, I said. Just talking to ghosts. My turn. I lined up on the center line, nose pointed toward the open desert. Falcon 1 ready, I said. Falcon 1 cleared for takeoff, Tower replied. Winds calm, Godspeed. Throttle forward. The jet surged, pressing me back, the runway blurring into a gray streak under the nose. At rotation speed, I eased back. We lifted, the ground rolling away, the world opening into endless blue and brown. For all the hurt, all the politics, all the years spent under concrete, this moment still felt like freedom. Gear up, I said, flicking the handle. The bumps and rattles of the wheels folding away vibrated through the frame. Falcon 1 airborne, I called. Copy, Mike replied. Welcome back to the sky, ma'am. Out over the range, I leveled at assigned altitude, the desert stretching in every direction like a painted backdrop. Blue Force was already in their package, little green triangles on my scope. Falcon, Blue is pushing IP, Sarah said. Ghost Stage 1 is live on Viper's radar. He sees a cleaner picture than he deserves. Let him get comfortable, I said. Comfort breeds mistakes. We listened on the BlueNet. Blue Leader, picture is clear, the AWACS controller said. Multiple groups, nothing you can't handle. Copy that, Connor's voice came back, cocky, even compressed through the radio. Blue has this. Let's give Red a show worth talking about in the debrief. I could practically hear Dad's laugh in the VIP gallery above and behind the glass. Old war stories loading like weapons in his memory. Not today, old man. Falcon, we have Viper 1 at Angels 2-4, lead of his element, Sarah said. Recommend we start tugging. Do it, I said. On the scope, in the cage, on Connor's radar, on my own displays, all three would soon be telling different versions of the same lie. Ghost Stage 2, Sarah said, stretching bandits by 10 miles on Viper's display. Nudging his altitude returns down by 500 feet. In his cockpit, his instruments would say, you're higher than you are, threats are farther. It was still within safety margins. We had hard stops coded in. But psychologically, it pushed him closer to rules he'd already shown he liked to flirt with. Blue 1, this is control, the controller cautioned as they approached the threat rings. Reminder, hard deck is 2-0 this iteration. Maintain. Relax, Control, Connor said. We've got plenty of room. His altimeter, lying by design, showed 25, reality 22. We let him bump the lid. We didn't let him break it. Falcon, Spiked is in, came Spike's voice over the internal red net. Visual on Blue. Viper looks itchy. Copy, I said. Feed him some candy, don't let him bite too hard. Spike rolled his aggressor toward Connor, giving just enough aspect to look tempting. Blue, tally 1 bandit, Connor called, excitement bleeding into his tone. Engaging. He peeled off, dragging his element with him, abandoning the rest of the package's flow to chase one flashy dogfight. I underlined another time code in my mind. Abandons mission for ego chase. On my HUD, his jet grew larger, closing the distance as he dove for the merge. I hung back, staying outside his awareness. Just a quiet line on the scope behind him. Ghost Stage 3, Sarah said. We're about to make him think he's God. On Connor's displays, every threat seemed to part for him, opening a corridor where we knew none existed. On my side, I saw the real picture. Multiple SAM rings, red jets in perfect position. We let him skate through them untouched, letting his brain draw the line. I can get away with this. Again. Look at that, he crowed to Blue. Viper's untouchable today. Affirm, Blue 1 is... his wingman started. Break, break, I cut across the internal red net. All reds hold fire. Let him hang himself. They obeyed. Professional. Disciplined. Exactly everything he wasn't. Time to finish it. Falcon is pushing, I said, nudging the throttle and angling my nose into his wake. Go stage 4. Give me a hole in his picture big enough to park a squadron. Sarah laughed once, sharp. Copy, she said. You're invisible to his radar now, within 20 degrees of his 6. We've shifted your return to his 3 o'clock low. He thinks you're nowhere near his tail. Control, Blue 1 picture? Connor called, a hint of confusion now. I'm not seeing that last bandit. Blue 1, picture clean, the controller said per the script. Recommend rejoin with your element. You're alone. He wasn't. He was never less alone than in that moment. But alone in his awareness? Absolutely. I slid in behind him, 2 miles back, slightly low, throttle nursing the closure so smoothly the jet barely noticed. On my HUD, his diamond sat fat and bright. Center screen. I could see the number on his tail. I could almost see the watch on his wrist. Spike, you visual? I asked. Watching from the cheap seats, Spike said. You're all over him. He hasn't looked back once. Any safety concerns? I asked. Negative, he said. You're well stacked. Plenty of sky below. Hard deck maintained. Copy, I said. The jet settled into that sweet spot where everything felt inevitable. The world narrowed to the steady tone of a good solution, the green box around his symbol, the knowledge that all the bluster and noise of the last week had funneled into this quiet, weightless moment. Falcon 1, weapons free, Harris's voice came over the command net. He was watching from the cage. From the VIP gallery, Dad would see nothing but 2 tiny specks on the horizon and a lot of lines on screens he didn't understand. He'd understand the call, though. Everyone did. I didn't raise my voice, Cal. Viper 1, I said over the blue net, tone conversational. This is Falcon 1. There was a beat of static. I imagined his head snapping. Sis, he said, startled. What are you? Check your 6, I said. Silence. In any other pilot, that silence might have been followed by a hard brake turn, a desperate search. From him, it was followed by denial. Control, Blue 1, I don't see... My thumb rested on the simulated weapons release. This was not a real missile. But for his record, his pride, his future in a cockpit, it might as well have been. I squeezed. Fox 2, I called, calm. Kill Viper 1. On the system, his jet blinked. On the range, his aircraft shook as the instrumentation registered the hit. Warning tones blaring, system flags tripping to indicate that had this been real, he would now be a fireball. Blue net exploded. What the? Who shot Viper? Did we miss a group? In my cockpit, everything went smooth again. Blue 1, this is Control, the controller said evenly. You are dead. Return to base. All blue players return. Exercise terminated. I eased off his tail, climbing slightly, giving my own jet breathing room. On my HUD, Viper 1's symbol turned into a ghosted mark tagged kill. We flew back toward Nellis in tense, ordered lines. No one wanted to be the first to speak. When wheels finally touched concrete again and jet noise gave way to the tick of cooling metal, I taxied in with a clarity I hadn't felt since my first solo. Engine off, canopy up. The desert air rushed in, hot and dry. From somewhere near the edge of the ramp, I saw a figure storming toward the hangars. Rigid back, familiar stride. Dad. Of course. He'd come straight down from the VIP gallery, bypassing protocol, looking for someone to aim his humiliation at. Maybe he'd find me. Maybe he'd find a wall of rank between us. Either way, he wouldn't find the daughter who used to flinch at his footsteps. I climbed down the ladder, boots hitting concrete with a solid thud. Spike was waiting, helmet under his arm, grin tight. Nice shot, boss, he said. We got his HUD feed. That debrief is going to be biblical. Get showered, I said. Grab food. I want everyone in chairs for the mass debrief in an hour. Every pilot, every instructor, VIP gallery full. And Viper? He asked. He'll be there, I said. He doesn't get to hide in maintenance. Copy, Spike said. He paused, then added quietly, You okay? I thought of the call. Fox 2, kill Viper 1. and the strange, clean stillness I'd felt as I said it. I'm steady, I said. Ask me again after we hit play on that tape. As I walked off the line, the Nevada sun baked my cheeks, sweat crawling down my spine under the flight suit. Up ahead, the debrief theater loomed. Dark, cool, unforgiving. That was where this really landed. In a room where you can't outrun the picture, where the truth doesn't shout. It just plays across the screen at half speed, with your name in the corner and your family watching from the back row. I tightened my grip on my helmet and headed for the door, ready to let the data speak louder than any Blake ever had at a dinner table. The debrief theater always felt like a court you couldn't lie to. Staggered rows, black walls, the faint smell of old popcorn, cold coffee, and fear. A single huge screen at the front, currently blank, waiting to ruin someone's day. Today, that someone wore my last name. Pilots filed in, flight suits rustling, boots thumping on the steps. Instructors took the back row. Safety officers clustered near the side aisle. Up in the tinted glass of the VIP gallery, shapes moved. General Harris, a few visiting colonels, and, unmistakably, the squared-off silhouette of my father. I took my place at the front, off to one side of the podium, helmet on the table, notes in hand. "Ready?" Sarah whispered as she slipped into a seat by the projector console. "Roll it when Harris says," I murmured back. The room dimmed. Harris stepped to the lectern, no slides, no notes. "All right," he said, "today's lesson is simple. We're going to watch how people actually fly when the desert isn't impressed with their Instagram." A weak chuckle rippled. He didn't smile. "Falcon 1, he said, turning to me, voice carrying. "Your show." I walked to the center. The spotlight of the projector cut across my flight suit, washing out my name tape, but making my rank on my shoulders hard to miss. "Good afternoon," I said. "We're going to focus on blue lead, call sign Viper 1, in yesterday's scenario." A couple of heads turned toward Connor's row. He sat rigid, jaw clenched, arms folded over his chest. His watch flashed once in the dim light. "For those who haven't met me," I added, "I'm Major Aaron Blake, call sign Falcon 1, aggressor mission commander." No one laughed this time. I nodded at Sarah. "Roll HUD," I said. The screen came to life. Cockpit footage, the F-16's nose, desert below, sky above. Altitude tape on the right, airspeed on the left, artificial horizon, threat rings. Connor's breathing piped through the speakers, steady at first, then tight. "We'll start with the hard deck violation," I said. "Day 3, weather marginal, hard deck 19,000. Listen and watch." On screen, the merge approached. Spike's jet flashed past. Connor rolled, dove. Altitude ticked down. 19.5, 19.2. "Blue 1, maintain hard deck," we heard the controller say. "Control, relax, I've got this," Connor's voice came back. Light, laughing. He dove anyway. Spike's jet filled half the HUD, closure rate screaming. The ALT tape dropped to 19.0, flirted with 18.9 before he hauled back. I tapped the laser pointer at the numbers. "Per red flag ROE," I said calmly, "this is grounds for immediate termination of the sortie. I called knock it off. You all heard it. He climbed, eventually." I let the frame pause with Spike's jet filling the HUD. If Spike had hesitated, I said, we'd be cleaning 2 jets off a hillside instead of sitting here. The room was utterly silent. I could feel Connor's stare burning from somewhere to my left. "We'll come back to that," I said. "Now we're going to look at today's final mission. Focus on Blue 1 from the moment he pushes from IP." "Falcon," Connor started from his seat. Harris didn't even glance his way. "Sit down, Lieutenant," he said mildly. "The tape speaks, then we do." I nodded at Sarah again. "Run Alpha," I said. She hit play. The HUD showed takeoff, climb, ingress. "Note the ghost protocol effects," I said. Altitude reads 2.5 when actual is closer to 2.4. Threats appear slightly farther than they are. This is within safety margins. It is not cheating. It is what an enemy would love to do to you. On screen, you could see the slight discrepancy in the tapes if you knew where to look. "Listen to Blue 1's comms," I said. "Blue lead, picture is clear," AWACS said. Copy, Connor's voice responded. Plenty of room, Vipers in his lane. Note, I said he does not cross-check with wingmen. Does not ask for confirmation. Trusts the picture entirely. We watched him chase Spike. He peeled off from the package, abandoned the escort role for a dogfight. Pause, I said. Sarah froze the frame. Blue One's mission, I said, was to escort a strike package to simulated targets, not to rack up personal guns kills. In real combat, this is how you lose tankers, bombers, and friends too slow to outrun your ego. A few heads bowed. I caught one or two older pilots nodding grimly. Now, I said, let's watch the kill. I felt, more than saw, Connor flinch. Ma'am, he burst out, unable to hold it any longer. That protocol glitched my scope. My instruments? I looked straight at him. The only glitch we observed, I said, was between your ears and your training. And a soft, painful oof went through the back rows. Harris's mouth twitched. Continue, Major, he said. I turned back to the footage. On screen, Connor's jet banked left, chasing a phantom return Sarah had fed him. My own HUD tape appeared picture-in-picture in the corner, my F-16 sliding behind him, small at first, then growing, then locking. Note the timestamp, I said. You will see Falcon's HUD box Blue 1 as a target at time 09:13:24. The box snapped around his symbol. A subtle tone hummed. From this moment, I said, clicking the pointer, until the simulated Fox 2 call, Blue 1 has a hostile HUD jet on his 6 at lethal range. I let the footage run. 5 seconds, 10, 15, 20. Connor never once craned his neck, never once broke, never once asked his wingman for a check. His eyes stayed glued to the forward horizon and the lying scope. Count it, Mike murmured from the back, barely audible. 39 seconds, Sarah said quietly, reading from the timeline. 39 seconds with a bandit on your tail in real combat is a lifetime. Or no time at all. Fox 2, my own voice called from the recording. Kill Viper 1. On screen, his HUD flashed with a simulated hit. He yanked, late. The tape cut to black. Light stayed dim. I turned to face the room. In that 39 seconds, I said, a real missile would have left its rail, tracked you, and turned your jet into confetti. Your wingman needed you. Your package needed you. Your father in the gallery would have watched his legacy die chasing a ghost. The word father hung heavy. I didn't look up at him. This isn't about embarrassment, I continued. It's not about revenge, it's about risk. We have hard data now, repeated hard deck flirtations, abandonment of mission profiles, ignoring safety calls, and failure to maintain basic tactical awareness. That combination gets people killed. As I stepped back, letting the weight of the evidence settle. Sir, I said to Harris, as Red Air Commander, my recommendation is immediate grounding of Blue Lead, pending full safety review and board. I do not consider him safe in a cockpit in this environment. Harris nodded once. The safety officer, a colonel with a permanent frown line, stood. I concur, he said. Based on the tapes in today's exercise, Viper 1's wings are a liability. I recommend suspension of flight status and initiation of a flying evaluation board. He turned to Connor's row. Lieutenant Blake, he said, stand. Connor stood slowly. Even in the dim light, I could see his knuckles white against his thighs. This board will convene within 30 days, the safety officer said. Effective immediately, your flight status is revoked. Hand in your flight gear and access cards after this debrief. Until further notice, you are grounded. The room inhaled. Dad's silhouette behind the glass jerked. Sir, with respect, Connor began, voice cracking. Respect would have been maintaining the hard deck, the safety officer said. Respect would have been listening to knock it off. Respect would have been checking your 6 instead of showing off. Harris cut in. Lieutenant, he said, you are talented. That got you here. But talent without discipline is a weapon pointed at your own side. This is not a punishment. It's a pause to see if you can become the kind of pilot others survive flying with. He looked down at me. Falcon 1, he said, voice softer. Anything to add? Every eye in the room swung back to me. For a second, I saw Thanksgiving tables. Prime cut steak, Dad's watch gleaming, the grocery gift card digging into my palm. The years of being the backup. I saw Spike's near miss. I saw the HUD tape. "No, sir," I said. "The footage says enough." I caught Connor's eyes just once. Behind the anger, the shock, the humiliation, there was a flash of something raw, fear. Not of the board, of who he was without the jet. "Debrief concluded," Harris said, gaveling the session with the metal pointer. "Take what you saw today and make it count. Dismissed." Lights came up slowly. Chairs scraped. Conversations began in low, buzzing threads. Some pilots glanced at Connor, then quickly away. A couple of instructors laid brief hands on his shoulder as they passed, the way you do when you've been where he is. He shrugged them off. Up in the VIP gallery, Dad was already moving. I saw him push back from the glass, say something too forceful to a junior officer, then disappear from view, presumably headed for the stairs. Of course he'd come down. He'd never gone quietly out of any room in his life. Sarah approached the front of the theater, laptop hugged to her chest. "You did it clean," she said. "No extra knife twists, just facts." "Facts were sharp enough," I said. Spike drifted in behind her. "The back row was holding its breath," he said. "Never seen a kill tape shut a room up like that." He hesitated. "Thank you," he added, voice rough. "For the hard deck call yesterday, and for today." "I didn't kill him," I said. "You didn't either, that's the point." He nodded once. "Still," he said, "there are worse ways to get grounded than by Falcon 1 instead of a mountain." Pilots trickled out. Some nodded at me. Respectful. Careful. Not fawning. Not mocking. Just adjusted. I gathered my notes and helmet, the strap warm where my hand had gripped it. As I stepped into the hallway, the cooler air hit my face. So did Dad. "Aaron," his voice came sharp, cutting through the murmur of other conversations. He stood at the far end of the corridor, near the exit that led to the sun-blasted parking lot. His jaw was clenched, eyes bright, flight jacket zipped to his neck like it was the only armor he had left. Around us, people slowed, then pretended not to notice, melting away in ones and twos. General Harris glanced our way once, measuring, then headed down another hall, trusting for now that I could handle my own father without a general between us. "Walk," I said, shifting my helmet in my hand, "but not here." Dad hesitated, then followed me through the door out onto the concrete. Hot wind hit us, carrying the smell of jet exhaust and tar. The parking lot stretched out, half full of trucks and sedans baking in the sun. Here, there were no HUD replays, no microphones. Just the man who'd given me his name and spent my whole life wondering why it didn't fit me the way he wanted. And the daughter, who'd just taken his golden boy out of the sky with one calm call. He stepped around in front of me, cutting off my path between two sun-baked pickups. "What did you do?" he demanded, voice low but venom-laced. "You humiliated him. You humiliated me." And the words hit, but they didn't sink the way they used to. Maybe because for once I'd seen what humiliating him really looked like. Not my actions. His son's tape. His own reflection. "This wasn't about you," I said quietly. "That's the problem. For once, it was about safety. About data. About what's real, not what you tell yourself over whiskey." His nostrils flared. "We're not done," he said. "You and I." "On that," I said. "We agree." Behind him, heat shimmered off the runway. Above us, somewhere, jets carved contrails into the sky. Thin, white lines that would vanish in minutes, leaving nothing but the memory of where they'd been. This conversation? This line? It wouldn't disappear so quickly. And for the first time in my life, standing in front of him in a flight suit he'd never imagined I'd earn, I realized something simple and terrifying. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. That was the real knock it off, the one that would matter long after Red Flag ended. I shifted my helmet under my arm, met his eyes, and braced for the next pass, knowing this time I wouldn't be the one flinching away. Heat shimmered off the asphalt, making my father's outline waver. He jabbed a finger back toward the building where the debrief had just gutted his narrative. You set him up, he hissed. You sat in that cockpit and rigged it. Ghost tricks, jammers, whatever spook games you people play in that cave. You wanted him to fail. His breath smelled like coffee and rage. I shifted my helmet under my arm, feeling the cooled plastic tacky against my palm. I wanted him to live, I said. There's a difference. He scoffed. Live? He snapped. You just ended his career. Do you know what it means to take a man's wings? You might as well have cut off his hands. You almost watched him cut off Spike's, I said. And his own. That hard deck stunt? That wasn't aggressive flying, it was negligence. He stepped closer, boots scraping. You're jealous, he said. This is about you. About your little incident. The one that sent you down into the paperwork dungeon. You never got over being a washout, and now you've dragged him down with you. There it was. The story he'd told at every bar and barbecue. Aaron, the almost pilot. Aaron, the one who couldn't hack it in the real sky. I wasn't washed out, I said, voice still low. You know that. The IG cleared me, but female pilots scapegoated by broken squadron culture doesn't play as well over steak. He flinched. Those boys made it work, he said. You didn't. Those boys almost buried a crew chief when they made it work, I shot back. And the only reason they didn't was because I broke formation and took the hit instead. Wind gusted, hot and dry, flapping the hem of his jacket. Listen to yourself, he said. Always the martyr, always the victim. I stared at him. No, I said. Always the one who refuses to pretend this is fine. And he looked thrown just for a second. You could have covered for him, he said. You could have softened that tape, taken the edge off. You didn't have to swing the hammer in front of half the Air Force. The tape is the edge, I said. I just pressed play. He dragged a hand through his short gray hair. Do you have any idea what you've done to our name? He demanded. Blake used to mean something in that building. It still does, I said. Just not what you thought. It means one of us showed up prepared. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You think you're better than us? He said, voice going tight and quiet. Your mother died in a cockpit. I told you what this world was. You were supposed to prove me right by staying on the ground. There it was again. The old wound, wrapped in belief, used as both shield and weapon. Mom died because a maintenance error went unchecked, I said. Not because she had a Y chromosome missing. You twisted that into a ghost story to scare me off. It didn't work. So you just stopped seeing me instead. His jaw clenched. You don't talk about her, he said. You weren't there. I was there every day after, I said. Listening to you tell Connor he was the only real pilot left in the family. Listening to you turn grief into a script where women didn't belong in cockpits and sons could do no wrong. A flight of jets thundered overhead, engines vibrating through the concrete and into our bones. We both glanced up instinctively. Habit. History. It passed between us like a shadow. She's not here to see this, he said softly, anger thinning into something more fragile. She's not here to see her boy grounded. And you did it. I swallowed. I grounded a lieutenant who almost killed my pilot, I said. If that lieutenant had a different last name, you'd be the first one saying good call. He opened his mouth, closed it. You could have talked to him first, he muttered. Handled it in the family, not on a screen. I did talk, I said. On the radio, maintain hard deck, knock it off, check your 6. He ignored all of it. I'm done whispering truth so it doesn't bruise your pride. He stared at me, chest heaving. For the first time, I realized he wasn't just furious. He was scared. Scared of a future where his son wasn't the golden pilot. Scared of a world where his daughter didn't need his validation to breathe. You think I don't know what boards do to pilots? He asked. I watched friends lose everything. Get parked behind desks until they faded. You've sentenced him to that. No, I said. His choices did. I pulled the ejection handle before a mountain did it for him. The words hung in the hot air between us. Ejection handle. We both pictured the same thing. A canopy blowing, a body flung into the sky, a parachute blossoming too low or not at all. Dad, I said. The word felt strange in my mouth at that volume. Steady, not pleading. I am not your cautionary tale, I said. I am not your paperwork. I am not your failed pilot story to tell at bars. I'm Falcon 1. I'm the officer Harris trusted to decide when someone is too dangerous to keep flying. Today, that someone was your son. That sucks. It doesn't make it less true. His eyes flashed. You don't get to talk to me like that in that suit, he said. In this suit, I said, is the only way I can talk to you like that. Anything else and you hear little girl. Silence pressed down, humming like heat. Don't call me for favors, I added. Don't ask me to lean on boards or pull strings. If Connor wants a future in aviation, he can earn it in a sim, in a classroom, in the mirror, not through me. You'd turn your back on your own brother? He asked. I turned my back on enabling him, I said. There's a difference. He's not dead. He's alive because I took his wings before a crater did. His shoulders sagged, just a fraction. You sound like him, he said quietly, jerking his chin toward the building. Like Harris, like all of them, cold, practical. I thought of Harris in his office, tapping the call sign placard. You screw it up, it's on you. You do it right, some kids go home. This was warm, I said. Cold would have been letting him keep flying until the mishap report had to use past tense. He winced. He didn't argue. A breeze kicked up, carrying dust and the faint tang of jet exhaust. He looked at my helmet, at the faded stencil of Falcon 1. You always wanted my respect, he said. You think this is how you get it? By cutting down your own family in front of the entire base? I took a breath. I stopped wanting your respect the night you slid that grocery cart across the table, I said. What I wanted after that was simple. To be the kind of pilot I wished you'd been. His mouth twisted. Meaning? Someone who used rank to protect people, I said. Not to build a shrine around his last name. We stood there a moment longer, the sun baking the words into the pavement between us. Finally, he looked away, out at the runway. You're not coming to the house? He asked, voice duller now. To talk, to figure this out. No, I said, not until you can say my rank without choking on it. Not until you stop confusing a kill tape with a betrayal. He nodded once, short and sharp, like he was taking a hit he couldn't deflect. Suit yourself, Major, he said, spitting the last word like it burned. He turned and walked away across the lot, shoulders still squared but somehow shorter. I watched him go, the back of his flight jacket dark against the glaring concrete. Inside, jets kept taking off, landing, refueling, launching again. The world didn't stop for our family drama. War never cared whose name was on the side of the jet. I lifted my helmet, the plastic warm against my fingers, and let out a slow breath. This wasn't how I'd pictured any of it as a kid. The proud father in the stands, the shared last name on a squadron board, the two of us telling sanitized stories about the sky. But standing there with the sun on my face and my boots on solid ground, I realized something both painful and clean. I hadn't cut down my family. I'd cut out the rot. What grew after, that was up to them. As for me, my next brief wasn't with Dad. It was with the squadron that actually trusted me, the one that called me Falcon 1 without a smirk. I turned toward the building, toward the stairwell that led back down to the vault and up to the offices that soon might be mine. Behind me, the myth of Blaka's legend cracked in the heat. Ahead, the work waited. And somewhere just inside, my brother was about to find out what real pilots only looked like when the sky stopped taking bribes. 3 weeks later, I saw him with a box in his hands instead of a helmet. The squadron admin hallway smelled like toner and floor cleaner instead of jet fuel. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, washing the Air Force blue walls in a cold, flat glare. I'd come down from the cage with a stack of flight cards under my arm, intent on chewing out a captain who'd forgotten to sign off on a safety change. Then I turned the corner and nearly ran into Connor. He was pushing a cart loaded with printer paper, binders, and a box stamped with the distribution office logo. His flight suit was gone, replaced by a crisp but anonymous OCP uniform. No patches, no wings, just a small name tape. Blake. For a second, we both froze. The cart squeaked. He grabbed the edge to steady it, fingers digging into the cardboard. Hey, he said finally. His voice sounded thinner. rough in the way sandpaper gets after too much use. Hey, I answered. The hallway swallowed the word. We stood there, half blocking the corridor while junior airmen skirted around us, pretending not to notice the awkward gravitational field we were generating. His eyes dropped to my chest, my rank, my subdued pilot wings, the tiny Falcon 1 stitched onto my unit patch. He swallowed. How's red flag going? He asked, catching himself. Went. It did what it needed to do, I said. He gave a humorless half laugh. Yeah, he muttered. I noticed. I glanced at the cart. Supply office? I asked. Wing logistics, he said. Temporary, while the board decides whether I'm worth the paperwork to retrain. His mouth twisted. Guess I finally get to see what you do, he added. Push paper. Count boxes. Be invisible. There was no heat in it, just tiredness. Paperwork keeps planes in the air, I said. Boxes hold parts. Someone has to make sure the right bolts show up when the mechanic opens a crate. You screw that up, nobody flies anything. He shrugged, eyes fixed on the scuffed floor. Still not the same, he said. No, I agreed. It's not. Silence again. A copier down the hall whirred and spit out a stack of pages. He shifted his weight, the cart's wheels squeaking in protest. Did you enjoy it? He blurted. Killing me? In there? The question hit like a low-G maneuver. Subtle, but it twisted my gut anyway. No, I said. I enjoyed knowing the next time you strap in, if there is a next time, you'll remember what it felt like to have someone on your six for 40 seconds while you stared straight ahead. He winced. Everyone keeps telling me you saved my life, he said. Mom, the chief, even Harris. I don't feel saved. Survival rarely feels good in the moment, I said. It feels like failure. Later, if you're smart, it turns into humility. If you're not, it turns into resentment. His eyes flicked up to mine. Which one do you think I'm headed for? He asked. Ask me after you've filed your 20th supply request without throwing a fit, I said. Right now you're in the impact crater. That's not where we judge trajectories. He huffed out a breath that was almost, but not quite, a laugh. Dad hasn't stopped calling, he said. He's furious. At you, at the board, at me, at the Air Force. Thinks everybody's betrayed the great Blake legacy. Have you told him the only person in that equation who touched the stick was you? I asked. He shook his head. You know how he is, he said. He needs a villain. For once, it's not a colonel or the Pentagon, it's you. I've been his villain before, I said. I survived it. You can too. He looked at me for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. It came out raw, unpolished, like he hadn't rehearsed it. For the real pilots only joke, he added, voice barely above the hum of the lights. For not seeing you, for letting him talk about you like you were less, easier, background. At the words scraped coming out, I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you, I said. I'm not ready to throw you a party, but thank you. He nodded. They've offered me a full-time slot here, he said, nodding at the supply office door. No wings, no jet, just logistics. I told them I'd think about it. And? I asked. And I don't know who I am without the jet, he admitted. I thought of the first time I'd sat in that vault, wings freshly clipped, wondering the same thing. You're a lieutenant, I said. You're a Blake. You're a man who almost killed someone and didn't because we stopped you in time. You can let that be the end of your story or the turning point. He stared past me down the hallway where a bulletin board displayed base events, fun runs, family days, volunteer shifts. I wanted to be you, he said quietly. Growing up, the one who could fix anything, the one who never seemed scared. Dad twisted that, made it a competition. I blinked. That confession hit harder than his apology. Newsflash, I said gently. I was terrified half the time. I just got good at functioning anyway. He nodded, gripping the cart handle. Guess I'm going to learn a different kind of functioning, he muttered. Just don't treat the airmen like vending machines, I said. They're the ones who'll decide if you sink or swim in there. He snorted. Tips from the queen of the vault, he said. For what it's worth, I added. I didn't pull the trigger because you're my brother. I pulled it because you're a pilot under my purview. You got exactly the treatment any other call sign would have. That's the respect you say you want. He met my gaze. Then I guess I earned what I got, he said. We stood there a second longer. See you around, Viper, I said, using the call sign without sarcasm. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. See you around, Falcon, he replied. He pushed the cart past me, the rubber wheel squeaking its own awkward goodbye. As he rolled away, the sound of paper shuffling in the box mixed with the distant roar of jets outside. A strange duet of past and present. For the first time, watching his shoulders under a uniform without wings, I didn't just see the golden boy stripped of shine. I saw a pilot on the ground faced with a choice. Grow up or stay angry. The board would do its work. So would time. My work with him, for now, was done. Back upstairs in a temporary office overlooking the ramp, the coffee tasted like burnt dust and the AC blew too cold, but the view, jets taxiing, sun flashing off canopies, crews moving like a choreographed swarm, was everything I'd ever wanted to be part of. A week later, Harris called me into his office. The leather chair creaked as I sat. He slid a folder across the desk. Falcon, he said, they want you to take the 64th. Full commander. You'll do red flag and day-to-day aggressor ops. You up for running this circus long-term? The 64th Aggressor Squadron. Wraith paint, vault, cage, all of it, under my nameplate. Is that a question? I asked. He almost smiled. Sign here, he said. Then go figure out how to make the next class of hotshots hate you just enough to listen. The pen felt heavier than it should have. I signed. Outside his office, the hallway smelled like printer ink and old coffee. And something else. Possibility. Downstairs, Connor pushed paper. Upstairs, I was about to be in charge of the jets that made everyone else better or broke them before war could. It wasn't the life Dad had drawn out for his heir. It was the one I chose, and it was just beginning. 1 year later, the nameplate on my office door read, A.G. Aaron Blake, SCUCC, 64th Agerus, underneath a smaller plaque, Falcon 1. The office smelled like a mix of jet exhaust that seeped in every time someone opened the window and the lemon cleaner the admin insisted on using on my desk. Outside the glass, the Nevada sun turned the ramp into a shimmering mirage. On my wall, a photo from this year's red flag. Wraith-painted F-16s lined up under a bruised purple sky. Pilots in silhouette, hands on helmets. No one in that photo cared what my last name was. They cared that our tactics kept them alive in the sim so they didn't die outside it. Ma'am? My exec, Captain Walters, poked his head in. You wanted the training schedule update. Set it down, I said, spinning in my chair to face him. He dropped the folder on my desk. As he turned to go, he hesitated. Ma'am, he said, you've got a personal email flagged high priority. From a Robert Blake. You want me to ignore it? Even his voice carried the careful respect of someone who'd heard the base folklore. The day Falcon 1 killed Viper 1 in front of his daddy. I'll take it, I said. When he left, I clicked open the message. The subject line, request for assistance. Connor. Of course. Dad's writing style hadn't changed. Formal, inflated. Just enough self-pity to make the reader feel guilty for breathing. He described Connor's current posting in logistics, mentioned how beneath his true calling it was, spoke of his wasted talent and unfortunate derailment at last year's red flag. Then the ask, could I, as squadron commander and respected Falcon 1, use my influence to land Connor any kind of flying job? A training squadron, a test unit, a second chance. He never once wrote the word board, never once wrote safety violation, never once mentioned my kill call. He did, however, type, as his sister, surely you understand how much this would mean for our family's legacy. I sat back in my chair, the leather squeaking. On the shelf beside my desk, my old grocery gift card lay pinned under a paperweight, expired balance showing through the plastic. A reminder, not of poverty, but of clarity. My computer hummed. Outside, the muffled roar of an engine test rolled through the glass. I moved the cursor to the reply button. Stopped. Dad didn't need another argument. He didn't need another lecture about humility, safety, or what rank does and doesn't entitle you to. He needed something I couldn't give him. A different history, a different son, a different daughter. What I could give him was a clean line, the same one I'd given Connor in the hallway. You earn what you get. I dragged the email into a folder labeled Family Archive. No reply, no explanation, just acknowledgement. The history was real. It just wasn't in charge anymore. On the ramp, a jet thundered past, shaking the window. I stood, palms flat on the desk for a moment, feeling the faint vibration in my fingertips. Then I walked out. The corridor outside my office smelled like sweat and jet exhaust and coffee, my favorite cocktail. Airmen and officers parted with nods and ma'ams, not out of fear, but the kind of respect that comes from knowing your commander has sat where you sat, flown what you fly, and stood in front of a room willing to let the tape call out her own blood. On the flight line, heat rolled off the concrete in waves, making the Wraith jets ripple. Spike, now my DU, met me near the nose of the lead jet, checklist in hand. "Boss," he said, "we're about ready to go hurt some feelings." I smiled. "Good," I said. "Make sure they leave with all the important lessons and none of the important limbs missing." He grinned. "Always." I shaded my eyes with one hand and watched as the first pair of jets taxied. Black and blue paint, falcons flock. Behind us, the squadron building doors swung open. A few young pilots stepped out, adjusting their harnesses, helmets under one arm. A couple gave me quick nods, nervous, respectful. One of them, a woman fresh out of the B course, caught my eye. "Ma'am," she said, "thank you for the red air brief last week. My dad still thinks I work admin, but I know why I'm here." Her smile was small, fierce. I saw pieces of my younger self in her, and pieces that were better, sharper, unburdened by some of the weight I'd carried. "Your dad's opinion doesn't keep you alive at 20,000 feet, I said. "Your discipline does. Fly like you've got people to bring home." "Yes, ma'am," she said. She jogged off toward her jet. I watched her go, the sun catching on the name tape on her chest. Not Blake. Some other name, some other story. "Skies are yours, Falcon," Spike said. "For now," I replied, "till they're theirs." As the jets lined up, I felt the old girlhood ache for Dad's approval rise, faint and familiar. Then I let it go. Out here, the only approval that mattered was the throttles, the ground crews, the safety officers, the pilots who'd land because we'd made their training hurt enough to stick. I lifted my gaze to the sky, hard blue, unbroken, waiting. They had laughed once, real pilots only. Today, my call sign wasn't a punchline, it was a responsibility. One I wore not because my father ever put it on me, but because I'd picked it up myself and refused to set it down when it got heavy. The first pair roared down the runway, wheels leaving ground, wings biting into air. As they climbed, wraith paint flashing, I felt the vibration in my chest. Not fear, not longing, just alignment. I turned away from the noise, the sun hot on the back of my neck, and headed back toward the squadron building, where sims, briefings, and another wave of cocky kids waited to be turned into pilots who might actually come home. Let performance speak. Then let silence do the rest.